The National Council of Churches in Kenya has been in the forefront in efforts to uplift the living standards of the people by empowering them in different parts of the country. NCCK Upper Eastern region held a series of community sanitization forums in various parts of Meru County, where they brought together people living with HIV and AIDS to discuss issues touching on them as well as looking for a way forward to uplift their living standards. Earlier, NCCK had organized community meetings to sensitize members on the rights of people living with HIV and AIDS. NCCK Upper Eastern had discovered that ignorance had led to discrimination, which is against the law.
We are doing this because after working with the communities, we've come to appreciate that people living with HIV are actually discriminated. They don't know their rights, they can't access them, and so we found it vital to actually empower them.
The aim of TOWA Project was to enhance the capacity of the community members on the need for tolerance and respect for rights of people living with HIV and AIDS and reduce stigma and discrimination. The NCCK Upper Eastern region used legal experts from the region to train the participants and other community members on their rights as people living with HIV and AIDS during the legal clinic forums. The first seminar was held at St. John's Methodist Church in Miathene area, where the church leaders were brought together and trained on need to fight HIV and AIDS stigma and discrimination within their churches. This was a successful forum that made both the attendants and participants appreciate the efforts made by the NCCK Upper Eastern region in her effort to assist people living with HIV and AIDS. The second similar forum was held at Ntirimiti Full Gospel Church, where community members were sensitized on the rights and freedoms of the people living with HIV and AIDS. Forum to map out legal aid providers, commonly known as pro bono services providers, was held in Meru Hotel, where participants greatly benefited from the good services and training that was done by the NCCK Upper Eastern. During this forum, legal experts shared in details the processes which lead to pro bono services.
When advocates say they are doing pro bono legal services, they mean they are giving free legal advice. That is actually when you go to an advocate office and you are charged fees, what you are paying for the legal knowledge that advocate is going to use on your behalf in court. And that is where the pro bono service comes in.
People living with HIV and AIDS support groups were other key areas where the groups from various parts of the Meru County, particularly the rural areas, were brought on board. This was a way of empowering people living with HIV and AIDS to enhance self-disclosure, self-awareness, and self-reattachment. This process was also geared toward the sharpening the minds of people living with HIV and AIDS to more strongly understand and appreciate their status in order to kill self-stigma, a phenomenon which is expected to trickle down to colleagues who are still suffering from the external and self-stigma. Yesu ni Bwana support group and Tharumwendo support group from the Mikumbune area of South Imenti district were the first to be attended to. They gathered at Mikumbune Methodist Church to meet the NCCK officers and other guests. The council had brought with them lawyers to provide the community members with knowledge of their rights and privileges as people living with HIV and AIDS. The first session was to have the lawyers explain to the participants that the Kenyan law says on their well-being. This session involved questions and answer sections. At the end of the training, the present members were given the opportunity to state their personal individual problems and challenges that they are facing as a result of the HIV status. This was done in one-by-one encounter between the lawyers and participants, a process which was called legal clinic. People living with HIV and AIDS whose rights have been violated got someone to listen to them and offer professional help during the legal clinics. Kuhasu and Kapsu support groups from Kanyakine area were also involved in the program. Members of the two groups, who are all people living with HIV and AIDS, gathered at Kanyakine District Hospital to meet with the NCCK officers as well as the lawyers who were ready to assist them with proper training. The lawyers had time to speak to them. They too used their question and answer sessions wisely. The clinics confirmed the end of their training that particular day. In the neighboring district of Meru Central, Menyasiaku and Gatimbi support groups also had the opportunity to benefit from the sensitization on their legal rights. Their meeting was first held at Meru Central District Headquarters. The numbers kept on increasing, and due to lack of enough space, they moved to the neighboring AIPCEA church premises. Here, the participants too had their time with NCCK officials. The lawyers did their work perfectly, and the participants were glad to have participated. As usual, the clinics concluded their session. In Kubu area, there was Dream Support Group as well as the MCK Kubu Synod Support Group who underwent a similar process. Outside, the MCK Kubu church members of the two groups received training attentively from the same lawyers.
So we are here to sensitize and tell them about their rights so that whenever these rights have been violated, they can know where to go and get the requisite remedies. We have been doing this through various forms, but the most effective way has been to visit these people living with HIV wherever they are. We've been to various places and we've talked to them.
Many people from the Meru region have been joining these support groups as a way of strengthening their ability to improve their living standards. One of the key objectives of these seminars is to increase knowledge and awareness of the people living with HIV and AIDS. Other objectives are to facilitate a common platform for sharing responsibilities, experiences, and legal aid providers. After the training, many women who were infected with HIV and AIDS who had been living in fear of being chased away from their homes or being disinherited after the death of their husbands were left with renewed hopes.
They are empowering us and guiding us on how we can live positively, reducing stigma and educating other public people.
There was a drastic reduction of the stigma and discrimination due to the newly acquired knowledge. The whole process could not be concluded without noticing quite a number of challenges, among them financial constraints on the people living with HIV and AIDS, making it difficult for them to fight for their rights. It was also discovered that most of the people living with HIV and AIDS, especially in the rural areas, do not understand their rights as provided by the Constitution.
People are ignorant of their rights. So many people have been discriminated against, which is part of the constitutional right, the right not to be discriminated against. Yeah, so basically stigma on the ground. So NCCK did something really nice, came together, looked for people to teach just the basics, not deep into the law. So we talked to them like, these are our brothers and sisters, we can relate to them.
Another challenge is the lack of engagement of NCCK in provision of legal services to the needy community members. All in all, it was agreed that the support group's members educate other members of the community on the rights of people living with HIV and AIDS. The project seems to handle issues that have never been handled, yet they are imperative to the well-being of people living with HIV and AIDS for an equitable and just society.
At the end of this exercise, we expect that people will demand for their rights. People living with HIV and AIDS will demand for their rights. They will also be networked with the pro bonos. These are the lawyers who are out there to support them and to show them the way and to help them access justice.
It is very timely and relevant, coming at a time when the new constitution is being implemented. More needs to be done to reduce ignorance amongst those infected and affected, which is a foundation of stigma, discrimination, and oppression of people living with HIV and AIDS.